This man eats his wife's eyeless sardines every day. Although the eyeless sardines looked horrible, the husband ate them with appetite because he was born blind. He doesn't know what a sardine looks like any more than he knows what his wife looks like. But the wife's aim in doing this every day was actually to make her husband blind as a sardine. The wife feared that, when he regained his sight, he would find her ugly. The man was a very famous blind mechanic because he was the most handsome man in the village. Business was good. One day, a noblewoman came to Meishi's massage parlor, which affected Meishi's life. Meishi was massaging the lady when she interrupted him. The noblewoman compliments Meishi on his beauty and thinks that if Meishi regains his sight, Meishi's wife won't be good enough for him. Meishi doesn't know which way to turn. The lady said she had a friend who couldn't walk and went to a temple in the mountains to pray for 100 days. Not only was his leg able to walk normally, but he found a woman. Meishi was deep in thought. When he returned home, he immediately said he wanted to go to the mountain temple and make a vow to try to regain his sight. When his wife heard this, her face suddenly turned grave. She then asked Meishi what he would most like to see if he regained his sight. Meishi replied that he wanted to see his wife's face, but his wife said she hoped Plum Creek wouldn't accuse her of being ugly after seeing it. Meishi, meanwhile, jokes that he might not love his wife if she were ugly. The blind man goes to pray every day to regain his sight, but his wife fears her husband will abandon him when he recovers. It's because Plum Creek is blind that the ugly girl can't marry Plum Creek to see his wife's face. Meishi makes a wish every time he goes to the temple. When the doctor hears that Meishi has gone to the mountain to make a wish, he tells him not to get his hopes up. Indeed, Meishi's wife also went to the mountain to make a wish, but it was no use. Meishi was puzzled, for he had never heard his wife say that she prayed for herself. Although Meishi believed the doctor, he didn't ask his wife about it and continued to pray at the temple every day. Soon, it was the 100th day of prayer at the temple. Meishi folded his hands and prayed more devoutly than usual, hoping that God would protect him. When he opened his eyes, they were still dark. Aware of the failure of this method, Meishi returned home in despair. When he complained that the prayers hadn't worked, the stone he brought fell to the ground. As he bent down to pick it up, his vision cleared. Meishi was delighted to see his wife in front of him and was surprised to find that his sight had returned. He looked in the mirror and realized what he looked like. Meishi was delighted to have his sight back. But when Meishi saw his wife's sardines, he lost his appetite and felt sick. When he learned that he had already eaten this kind of fish, he said nothing and left the house. Meishi then left the house to collect stones. The neighbors saw Meishi carefully picking up stones. The neighbor then told Meishi that Meishi's wife liked stones because Meishi was blind, and Plum Creek could now buy his wife real jewelry. But when Meishi bought a beautiful hairpin for his wife, she only wanted stones. The blind mechanic regains his sight by going to the temple to pray, but Meishi's wife fears that he will one day abandon her. For Meishi's wife is the ugliest of women and Meishi is the handsomest of boys. Although Meishi has regained his sight, he hasn't given up his job as a masser. That day, the doctor came to the store for his usual massage. When he hears that Meishi has regained his sight, he asks him if he thinks his wife is pretty. Meishi replies that he doesn't know because he hasn't seen any other women. The doctor thinks that Meishi's wife's looks don't match those of Meishi. Meishi starts to become narcissistic. The next day, Meishi goes to the temple to return his vow, for it has come true. But as he leaves the temple, he suddenly sees a noblewoman. Meishi frowns when he realized that this woman was the noblewoman who had asked him to go to the temple to make a vow. Indeed, the woman is much more beautiful than Meishi's wife. The noblewoman is delighted to see that Meishi has regained her sight, so she takes Meishi home to celebrate. At first, Meishi is a little shy, but Meishi looked at the food on the table and couldn't resist eating it. However, just then, Meishi's wife pushed open the door and saw Meishi eating at someone else's house. Meishi's wife quickly approached Meishi's face and pressed his eyes with his hands. Although Meishi realized it was just a dream, he felt it was very real because he really can't see. Meishi's wife thinks Meishi may have been dreaming earlier. When Meishi went back to sleep, a strange smile appeared on wife's face. The next day, the wife went to the temple as usual to pray that her husband's eyes would be blind forever. Blindness isn't scary. Then, what is always the human heart that prevents you from seeing through it.